To us, fishing serves almost as a synonym for doing nothing, for vacation, for relaxation. When we come across language of fishing in the New Testament, we may be tempted to imagine a kind of idealized, peaceful, pastoral version of fishing. But fishing wasn't an escape from work for folks like Simon Peter and Andrew, James and John. It was work. Fishing was a major industry in Galilee, and fishermen, like the two pairs of brothers we encounter in today's gospel, worked hard to eke out a living. Fishermen who didn't own their own boats had to rent them. Even fishermen who did own their boats had to pay a seemingly endless array of taxes and fees to gain fishing rights and work their trade. In the end, their cash, if they were lucky enough to have one, went more to make the richest in society, folks like Herod Antipas, and even richer than it did to benefit those whose back-breaking labor got the fish out of the sea and into the processing plants and markets. Fishermen, even those who owned their own boats, often weren't their own bosses. They worked hard to provide necessities for their families, while the middlemen and the wealthy became richer. Maybe that's one of the reasons Peter and his friends were willing to leave their nets when Jesus called. To be sure, Jesus said if they followed him, they'd still be fishermen. Being a fisherman is no day at the beach, if you excuse the pun. A fisherman's life is full of uncertainty and extremely hard work. Jesus isn't promising them a life of ease, but Jesus' call may have offered two things that could have appealed to them, even if the work was just as hard as their former trade. First, meet the new boss. Not at all like the old boss. Jesus is Lord of this new undertaking of their lives. Maybe even then, the fishers whom Jesus called could tell that Jesus was not going to use his power and his followers' labor for his own benefit. Maybe they could tell that whoever Jesus was, he wasn't at all as bad as the tax collectors or political leaders to whom they answered. Little did they know at that point that Jesus would be calling tax collectors too. But they were right about what kind of boss Jesus was. The kind who uses power to help and empower others, rather than to increase his own honor, status, and wealth. They're not just going to work, they're going to work with Jesus. The new undertaking brought them into relationship with him. Second, becoming a fisher for people is going to bring these Galilean fishers not only into relationship with Jesus, but into a whole new network of relationships with others. Their relationships with Herod Antipas and the powers of this world, with the hated tax collectors, with their neighbors, with their families, with Gentiles and Pharisees, with anyone who heard Jesus' call and responding to it became a sister or a brother. None of these would ever be the same. In America, our culture exalts being your own boss and being your own man, being independent. Even, or especially, those who seem to be closest to those goals often discover they're illusory. The kings of this world answer to the kingmakers, and the kingmakers, the bosses of their own. Having Jesus as Lord, as one's only frees us from the webs of ambition we make only to get caught in them ourselves. Working for and with Jesus, we can cast a different kind of net, one that frees and empowers rather than binds and dehumanizes. Answering Jesus' call, we start to hear the world's cries. We are drawn into relationship as we find what we need to serve as Jesus' co-laborers in the world. It's not easy work, but it's the work we were born to do. It's a vocation where we will become more fully human and understand better what God is up to among us. Thanks be to God. Amen.
Amen.